For me. Check in the house family. Let us know where you're hailing from. I just have to tell you that I have proof that Nasara is continuously rolling out. So, for all the people who's not sure about what's going on, sometimes you have to look for the small disclosures. You have to look at the announcements and read through all of the rhetoric to see that a lot indeed is happening. So Nasara and Jasara are rolling out. It doesn't matter what it looks like. I know a lot of people's attention have been on the war and some of the other things like high gas prices and all those things. But family, I just got an article that talks about the United States Department of Education being dismantled. This is proof that things are happening on our behalf. So check in. Let me know that you can hear me. Please send me, put a one in the chat because I did forget to check my phone and make sure Abundant Rise. I forgot to check and make sure my phone was receiving internet. Can you hear me? Yes, I see a one in the chat. Come in, family. I just left the coin shop because I wanted to see what was going on. And it was so busy that they had to take names and help people one by one because the silver prices are down to like $68 per ounce. And gold is below $5,000 per ounce. Somebody can put in the chat what the gold and silver prices are. So while that's going on, where the prices of gold and silver are going down, a lot is happening in the news. So let's talk about the Department of Education, because I just stumbled upon this article today. On Thursday, which would have been March the 18th, the Department of Education announced its plans to transfer $1.7 trillion worth of a student loan portfolio over to the United States Treasury Department. First of all, the 18th was right after the 17th. We're heading into March the 22nd. And remember what Sheikh Jacob Bey told us. He said 322 represents Skull and Bones. That's tomorrow. He said you're going to see some announcements rolling out leading up to 322 and Skull and Bones, and that day will mark the transition of power. So if you missed my video with Sheikh Jacob Bey, it's today the 19th. I thought it was the 8th. Oh, that was the 19th. So please go watch the video that he and I did last night talking about the transition of power. So we're headed over to the 22nd. This is critical that the Department of Education announced they were transferring $1.7 trillion of a student loan portfolio over to the United States Treasury Department. Why is that important? Because it lets you know that the United States Department of Education is ceasing to exist. Why is that important that the United States Department of Education ceases to exist? Because the United States Department of Education is actually part of the United States Incorporated. When the Chevron doctrine was overturned in the summer of 2024, the Supreme Court justices said that the United States Incorporated, the government had too much power. They overturned the Chevron doctrine, which had given the United States government unlimited power. The Supreme Court of the United States said that unlimited power was detrimental to we the people. They said that the United States government was unconstitutional, unlawful, and treasonous. They furthermore went on to say that any judge that participated with the shenanigans, that's my word, dealing with the United States government had also committed treason, and any judges that knew of a judge that went along with all of the things, the statutes, codes, and policies that the United States Incorporated had orchestrated against we the people. Any judge that knew of a judge that allowed that to happen and didn't report it to the president, they committed misprision of treason. That was in the summer of 2024. Then in 2025, President Trump came back. Some people call that this his second administration. I'll call it his third. That's why when you look at the movie Melania, which now is out, my granddaughter told me it's out now. I think she said Prime or Amazon or something. I actually saw the movie on the day it premiered. But when you look at the movie, if you pan over to the camera pans over to one of the cars, and the driver's license says 45 through 47, which means 45, 46, 47. He had three administrations. The Biden administration was just a cover. They just allowed Biden to run roughshod, do whatever he wanted in order to awaken the people while President Trump's administration was working in the background. So during President Trump's third administration, some call it the second, when he came back, January 2025, he issued out executive orders. One of the first things he did was to put Elon Musk over the Department of Government Efficiency in order to downsize the government. This is when we knew for sure that the reports we've been giving out are playing out on the world stage, that the United States Incorporated, the government, is being dismantled. So I want you to read the article. It's an article put out by MSN News. And you can go to my Dr. Kia Pruitt show on YouTube, look on the post or the community section. I put out the article there, and I sent a link to the article. So those just joining in on Thursday, this is Saturday, it was 2 days ago, the Department of Education announced that they plan to roll over or transfer $1.7 trillion of student loan portfolio into the United States Treasury Department. Why is that important? Well, according to that article, they actually mentioned this is a part of President Trump's plan to dismantle the Department of Education. They just laid it out plainly. Why I'm excited about that is because when you get rid of the Department of Education, you're saying that you're getting rid of the government. Now, this is interesting because just a few months ago, President Trump said that he had frozen a lot of money that was given to the Department of Education, but that he had intended to release those frozen monies or assets that the Department of Education had to the states. Why did President Trump announce that he was unfreezing those funds and giving it to the states? So that you and I can use that money in the states to either send our children to private schools, create private schools and fund them, or homeschool. You know what type of email I just got the other day? I'm in a wonderful state of Florida. The Golden State. Is it the Golden State? I got an email talking about Step Up and other grants, scholarships for students who are being homeschooled. Because when President Trump unfroze those assets or those funds by the United States Treasury, by the Department of Education, he then released it to the states because states now are operating in their sovereign capacity. According to our republic, each state is a country. So states now can do a lot of things like educate their own children. If you recall, in about 2022, the state of Tennessee rejected millions of dollars, billions in fact, of funds from the United States Department of Education. The state of Tennessee said, we don't want your funds from the Department of Education. We will take care of our own students. The reason why they mentioned they rejected money from the Department of Education is because they said when the Department of Education funds your schools, you have to go by their curriculum, you have to take their propaganda, you have to use all of their standardized tests. And the Tennessee department, their own Department of Education, said, we don't need their standardized tests because it is not an indication of how students will do in college or how they will proceed or succeed at life. A lot of them are culturally biased. So we don't want the funds from the United States Department of Education. So Tennessee actually led the charge in 2022 for all states to reject funds from the United States Department of Education. So I'll just go over my notes just a little bit. And why is the Department of Education transferring $1.7 trillion of student loan portfolio? Notice that number. Everything they do is coded. It's a message. $1.7 trillion. They couldn't come up with another number. No, they want you to know that this is a military operation, which we know Q and 17 number has always talked about. Now, you don't have to be a Q person that understands or even cares about the number 17. It doesn't matter. The number 17 is what they've been using in their coded messages. And if you don't even like what 17 represents, just look at the gematria. 1 + 7 = 8. 8 is the number of prosperity and abundance and wealth. Coded messages that we have returned to the golden age and we're living in a time of prosperity. So they plan, in the article, it says this is a part of President Trump's plan to move forward with his accomplishment. That's the word they use, in dismantling the Department of Education. They said that the transfer will happen in multiple phases and that people should, in the meantime, keep paying their student loan debt. I'm okay with that, because I also reported to you all just a couple of days ago, and you can look on my community section, that whereas before, NELNET, NELNET, that's where you want to go to look at your student loans to see the status of it, your student loans. They were saying that they were rejecting forbearances, rejecting deferments. That's your ability to not pay. So you're saying I'm going to defer the payment, or I'm in forbearance. Maybe I have experiencing economic hardship. If you go to nelnet.com, as an aside, please create an account if you have student loans to check the status. If you're not able to pay your loan, if you're able to pay your loans, wonderful. If you're not able, apply for a deferment or forbearance. Then upload proof that you're experiencing economic hardship or that you're disabled, like you might get a letter from Social Security, upload that. Veterans Disability, upload that. You might upload a W-2 or tax form that shows your income. Or if you still want to pay, then apply for the income-driven repayment plan. That's the IDR. And again, whereas before they were rejecting those, now they are receiving those. Why is NELNET, who holds the student loans or the student loan information, now putting a hold on those rejection letters? Because the largest loan servicing company and some other supplemental loan servicing companies are held up in litigation right now. They're held up in courts because student loan borrowers took student loan companies and servicers to court, saying that they're preying on students, that they're forcing them to pay high amounts of student loan debt, and that when you accrue the interest, it's so much interest that they can't pay the debt off. So they're held up in litigation. Go to nelnet.com and you can see that they're held up in litigation. So if you owe student loans, I would encourage you to check the status, because you don't want those student loans to go into default. But here's the good news. But speaking of student loan default, default means you haven't made your payments for whatever reason, and you didn't report to them why you didn't make the payments. That negatively impacts your credit report. The Trump administration said those loans, that $1.7 trillion of loans, a loan portfolio, student loan portfolio that's being transferred to the United States Department of Treasury, is going to first handle or figure out how to deal with the loans that are in default. That's their first priority, to figure out what they're going to do. So why is the Department of Treasury handling student loans? I'm glad you asked. Because according to our republic, the only entity that may deal with money, finance, or anything related to finance, and in our terminology, in this reality, we'll say banking, has to be dealt with by the United States Treasury Department. If this isn't proof that not only the Department of Education is being done away with, but so is the Federal Reserve Central Banking System. By the way, Representative Thomas Massey from Kentucky has been pushing bills to end the Federal Reserve Central Banking System for a long time. It's called the End the Feds Act. At the same time that he did that, we see that the Supreme Court of the United States has been actively trying to get rid of the Federal Reserve Central Banking System. So in 2024, in the summer, not only did they overturn the Chevron doctrine, which had given the government unlimited powers and said they no longer can have unlimited powers to create whatever statutes, codes, and policies they wanted, and that they were treasonous, unconstitutional, and had to be dismantled. All 444 government agencies, like the CIA, the IRS, the FBI, 444, they have to be dismantled. Not only did the Supreme Court of the United States do that in 2024, then they turned around the next month in July and said state-sponsored banks could completely disband from the Federal Reserve Central Banking System, meaning they could separate from them, have their own charter, their own rules, their own laws, and issue out their own gold-backed currencies. So the Federal Reserve is collapsing. The United States Department of Education is collapsing, and all of those entities that were tied to the United States Incorporated, the fake government. All 444 agencies will be dismantled. So Education Secretary Linda McMahon said that she blamed the Biden administration for confusing students. She said that he confused students as it related to their repayment of student loans, and she blamed the Biden administration for what she called erosion, his ability to erode students' trust in the federal government, or in the republic, the government. No trust in the government, because they will make promises and then not fulfill their promises. So this is Education Secretary Linda McMahon says, I blame the Biden administration for repayment confusion and erosion. She said that in her letter to her borrowers, alongside saying that the Department of Education has proven woefully unable to collect debt to taxpayers. So she said that the United States Department of Education has done a horrible job of keeping students updated, a horrible job of preying on students, a horrible job of accruing high interest rates, because she didn't say this part, but forcing somebody to pay interest is against the Constitution. It's against not only the Constitution, it's against most communities, most countries' republic laws, their common law. It's against the Bible to put usury on somebody or interest rates. Good day, darling. Tony Hood. Good day, sweetheart. So not only did the department, the United States Treasury Department said, we're going to take over from here and we're going to handle the student loans, but they said that the status quo has failed students and mired our nation in a financial stalemate. The status quo, the department that has handled finances in America, has failed students and mired the entire nation in financial stalemate. And we know that's true because most people they couldn't pay their student loans if they wanted to. They can't hardly afford to live. People are stressed out because they don't have enough money. They're paying high prices, high gas prices, high food prices. So now the Department of the Treasury Department is saying, we got it from here. We're going to take over. And in fact, they went further and said it's time for an entity with deep financial and banking experience to take over the finances of this country and to support fiscal responsibility. Again, why is the Department of Treasury handling the finances and student loans? Because only the Department of Treasury can deal with money, fiscal responsibility, finances, and even banking, anything related to banking, according to our republic. This is proof for me that the republic is being restored, that Nasara is here. Now, the article would tell you that students ought to still pay their student loans. But I'm telling you, if you can't pay it, there are options out there. There's forbearance. There's a deferment. If you go back to school, or if you're already back in college, you can apply for a deferment. That means you're going to put off the payments for a while you're into school. However, interest rates are accruing. Or you can say, I need a 12-month forbearance. It goes up to like 3 years of forbearance and not paying it because you might be experiencing economic hardship. If you need it, use it. Just know that interest is accruing. But the interest is what is causing a lot of Americans to really go into debt as it relates to student loans, because they can't pay it. You might have borrowed $15,000 for a couple classes, but if you don't pay that in a couple years, that $15,000 can turn to 20, 30, depending on the interest rate. So This is good news that the United States Treasury Department is handling this. Now, when you read the article by MSM, they would try to spin it to say, oh, but the Treasury Department isn't capable of handling student loans. The Treasury Department isn't capable of handling debt. The Treasury Department isn't capable of this. So what does this mean for students? This means you ought to be aware. You ought to be concerned. Well, the United States Department of Education doesn't seem to be capable either. And that's under the old system. That's under the United States Incorporated. So the Department of Education has to collapse. This is just the beginning. Really, it's like the middle, because we've seen many articles come out about other federal entities like the IRS laying off thousands, tens of thousands of workers. Remember, under the Biden administration, they said they were going to hire like 88,000 IRS workers and give them guns so they can shoot Americans on demand if they don't pay their taxes. That was under the Biden administration. Soon as Trump came in, yeah, he said, no, we're going to put a halt to that. We're not hiring these people. And if anybody's already been hired, we're going to fire them. The Trump administration has let go a lot of people working for the government. Now, on the short end, in a short term, that could really cause a lot of families to struggle and suffer. But in the long term, we have to get rid of the government. We have to get rid of this financial system in order to turn over or return to the republic and our lawful system. So what else is in the news? I want to thank God for Gold Star Mother Susan Price, who sent me this article that said President Trump is wrapping up the Iranian war. Y'all got to go see that article. He said it's a wrap. It's about done. We're finished here. We've accomplished all our goals. That's it. That's it. That's all. So if he's wrapping up Iran and he's now in Cuba, and Cuba has so much pressure on them to end that administration, we're almost there. We're done. What Sheikh Jacob Bey said on yesterday about 322 marking the end of the beast, 322. Y'all know that number, skull and bones. They put it on all their regalia, 322, with the skull and the bones. Tomorrow is 322. He said that is the mark of the transition of power. We are there, family. And you know what's interesting about this season, March? We're in a season of Passover. See, I'm a Hebrew woman. I've always kept, well, since I was young, I kept the Passover and all of the Hebrew holy days prescribed in Leviticus 23, including the seventh-day Sabbath. So I understand and overstand that Passover is about the death angel passing over God's people who have kept his commandments and lived a righteous life. Passover in the Old Testament was about, let me know y'all still with me. You're welcome. Passover was about how Moses had gone to Pharaoh. Remember Moses, he was really a Hebrew, but he was raised with the Egyptians. When his mom had put him in a basket, he went on the water. An Egyptian woman found him. She brought him into her daddy's house, Pharaoh's house. She raised him as her own son. He was a Hebrew, but he was raised as an Egyptian royal person, which lets you know that the Hebrews and Egyptians looked a lot alike. People couldn't even tell the difference. So when he came of age, Moses came of age, he was Hebrew. Somebody had hit or smitten, somebody that was Egyptian had smitten a Hebrew person. Moses rose up and said, you smit one of my brothers. I might have been raised Egyptian, but look, this is my bloodline you fighting. So he went and he killed the man, right? He unalived the man. Then Moses started remembering, I'm Hebrew. I gotta save my people. Then God of the Hebrews, and this is the biblical story, started speaking to Moses and said, you go to Pharaoh, the king, and you tell him to let my people go. Preach, Dr. Pruitt. Preach, evangelist. I'll prop myself up. Preach. Somebody say, preach, evangelist Pruitt. Preach. So Pharaoh went. He went to his consorts, his colleagues, and was like, what's going on here? I heard that my son that I raised, Moses, was up here killing the Egyptians. Moses then went to Pharaoh and said, the God of the Hebrews sent me and told me to tell you, let my people go. Pharaoh was like, nah, I don't know who you think you are, but I'm the king. And I ain't letting nobody go. I ain't letting no slaves go. They done built up my nation. They done what I said all this time. I'm not letting them go. Now I'm speaking in Ebonics, okay? So Moses went and he had consulted with God, the God of the Hebrews, and the God of the Hebrews told Moses, I want you to go back to Pharaoh. I want you to perform some miracles, some rituals, some miracles. You know, you're going to lay a rod down. It's going to turn into a snake, a serpent, and you're going to do a whole bunch of things. He did that. And Pharaoh's people said, oh, that ain't nothing. We can trump everything you do. You throw down something, it's going to turn into a snake. We're going to throw down something, it's going to turn into a snake. But then Moses' snake ate up their snakes. So they were just doing this back and forth contest. Moses was like, you know what, I'm tired of all this. He went back to God and he said, I'm tired of all this. Now, come on now. You said you were the God of the Hebrews. You keep telling me to go to Pharaoh to say, let my people go. But then you harden Pharaoh's heart. And Pharaoh said, I ain't letting them go. I ain't doing nothing. Forget that. So speed it up. God said, I'm going to release plagues. I'm going to release 10 plagues. And he just, send boils to the Egyptians. And where they broke boils, I'm going to cause frogs, a plague of frogs. I'm going to cause all these plagues. I'm going to just send them through a whole bunch of, read it. It's what the Prince of Egypt is all about. So he sent all these plagues, but God was like, okay, I'm done playing games with Pharaoh, because no matter what I do, he won't let my people go. So he said, the final plague is I'm going to unalive the first child, the newborn son. Everybody loved back in then, especially under patriarchy, you love the newborn son because you pass down your inheritance to the firstborn. I said the newborn, the firstborn son. So God said, I'm going to go throughout all the land. This was the 10th, the last plague. I mean, he did everything, all these plagues. And I want to send a death angel to the houses of everybody. And I'm going to unalive their firstborn son. Because Pharaoh's heart is hard and he won't let my people go. But the Hebrews, he said, if they don't want the death angel to unalive the firstborn, because death angel ain't got time to say, are you Hebrew or not? So for the Hebrews, I'm going to tell them to put the blood on the door. Kill a lamb, put the blood on the door, and the blood is a symbol or a sign that they belong to me, to God. So all the Hebrews, and I venture to say even the Egyptians who followed the order to put the blood on the door, fulfilled what was asked of them. Then at midnight, the death angel came by the whole province in Egypt. Many scholars say he skipped over Goshen, because Goshen is where the Israelites live, the Hebrew people live. But the death angel came by in the middle of the night and came through the whole country. And like that, all the firstborn sons just died in their sleep. But the firstborn of the Israelites, the Hebrew people, lived. Because they obeyed and put the blood on the door. The death angel passed over those that obey God. The death angel passed over those who followed these instructions. The death angel passed over those who had been enslaved. The death angel passed over those who had been shackled. The death angel passed over those that were monetary slaves. The death angel passed over those that were oppressed and that had dealt with violence and mistreatment. That's where we get Passover from. We are in that season right now where the death angel and all of the maliciousness that the deep state is going to have to deal with is going to pass over us, but their systems are dying. Their systems are collapsing. They're going through sudden death right now because they don't have access to their money or their assets, their wealth, or children, or blood, or adrenochrome, or organs, none of that. And they're frustrated because they're losing access to you and me because no longer are we buying into the system. The fact that their corporations are collapsing means we're free now. Yeah, some of us wish we had extra income, but now we're free to create our own businesses. We're free to create our own jobs. We're free to do whatever we want on our own time now that we're not building up their empire. Oh, they're struggling. The death angel got a hold of them. This is the Passover season. But it's not only Passover season, it's also resurrection season. Because the other part of that's the Old Testament of Passover. When we celebrate Passover, we also commemorate the New Testament, when the Christ or the Messiah died for the sins of the world. Whether you believe in the Messiah or not, I'm telling you how, as a Messianic Hebrew woman, I was raised. The Christ died during Passover season. He did foot washing. He had the last sacrament with the disciples, the 12 disciples. That was the communion service that we even have that during Passover, even in the Old Testament. So he had his sacrament. He encountered a woman with a pitcher of water. That's why we were raised drinking water for communion and not wine or grape juice. I'm just telling you a story. So the Christ died. Daniel said that the Messiah would be crucified in the middle of the week, in the midst of the week. So Passover during that time probably fell around Wednesday, which would mean he went in the grave Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Saturday night, and then that Sunday morning he rose. Well, no, by the time they went to, when Mary and Martha, the sisters, went to the grave on Sunday morning, he was already gone. That meant he rose sometime on Saturday, the Sabbath day. Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. And they say he rose actually somewhere between Saturday and sundown Saturday. But they say when he went to the grave on Sunday, he was already gone. When he died, his death burial was important because he was the sacrificial lamb. Remember, in the Old Testament, they had to sacrifice a lamb. They had to put the blood on the door. He was the last sacrificial lamb, and his death when he died and he bled on the cross, that was the sacrament. When he died and he went into the ground, he preached to the lost souls in the ground. And when he rose, all of the people's loved ones rose up out of the graves with him. What he was doing, they say in the Bible, he was preaching to the lost souls, offering them eternal life. And he was also taking away the power and the sting of the grave. He was taking control of death. He said, death is against my people. I'm coming against death. Death is not a beautiful thing. Death is something that's harmed my people. That's what he preached in the New Testament. And then he rose. What he said? All power in heaven and earth is given unto me. I'm just telling the story. I'm not saying it's real. I'm not saying anybody has to abide by it. I'm saying, as an ordained evangelist, I read the scriptures. I exegeted the scriptures. I read historical texts. I read many books. I learned how to exegete, meaning that I had to understand the etymology of the words. I eisegeted the scripture, meaning I had to understand the etymology along with the historical context, and read other books to affirm and confirm my understanding or overstanding of what the scripture represented. Now, there is a metaphysical part of that when Christ rose, what we're experiencing is a resurrection of the Christos consciousness, or the awareness that we are also gods or creators. The Christos consciousness is having, the crown chakra is having an awakening, and that's why they call 2020 the corona. Corona as in crown chakra, as in Christos consciousness is having an awakening, and people are raising and ascending in consciousness. But Passover and resurrection or Easter, they were really one and the same thing. The Hebrews kept Passover. The Hebrews honored the sacrificing of the lamb for their sins. they sacrificed lambs and other animals to atone for their sins. And then the last time they sacrificed it as it relates to Passover was so that they could put the blood on the doorposts so that the death angel could pass over them. And then in the New Testament, they honored that the Christ, their Messiah, the ascended master who had taught them how to live a righteous life before them, had died for their sins and rose with power. So according to Christians or Hebrew people or the ancients, now they were resurrecting in power, and the Passover, the death angel, whatever was supposed to happen to them for any omission or commission of sins, it would be the death angel, and unrighteousness, the judgment would pass over them because they applied the blood of Jesus to their lives. That's how Christians see it. But let me tell you, the Hebrew people have always just known that the blood was about sacrificing. And if you want to get into ancient history, it was about the blood, the menstrual blood of the woman actually having the power of life. The menstrual blood of the woman was used in many ancient societies and rituals to bring about prosperity, to fight against entities and wars. But that menstrual blood was turned into sacrificing people and animals, if you really want to get down to it. So the menstrual blood that was holy and sacred that came from the woman was then demonized. And the women who used the blood in their rituals were sacrificed and called witches, as if being a witch is a bad thing. Because really, the women were using their ancient ancestral powers to bring about change. But when the matriarchy was taken over by the Romans and these Aryans that came out of the caves, they unalived the women, they hung them, they burned them. They called them witches and warlocks, and the warlocks must have been the men. Said they were the men that went along with the women that were doing that. They demonized them. Then they said that blood was dirty and that was vile, and that the woman couldn't enter the temple or the synagogue if she was menstruating, as if she could control that. So up until I was like 20, even in my congregation, if a woman was menstruating, she couldn't come into the church or the congregation. She was considered unclean because she was menstruating. When before in ancient societies, the blood was not only clean. Think about the songs. Oh, the blood. Oh, it has power. Power in the blood. Power in the blood of the Lamb. Of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the wondrous blood of the Lamb. But when it comes to a woman's blood, it's unclean, it's dirty, it's filthy. She can't enter the synagogue. You see how our minds have been twisted and turned against the woman? Why do the people in power hate women so much? They even demonized her all throughout the scriptures. They even said she is the reason why the world is the way it is. See, when these entities came out of the caves and they took over these ancient societies, I study anthropology. You can't argue with me. And now science is actually releasing evidence of matriarchal societies for all those that say there's no evidence, it never existed. You never studied, you never looked for it. You didn't study anthropology. You didn't study the relics. You didn't study the culture. You didn't study the scripts like some of us who study anthropology did. Now look it up. They're discovering ancient societies that were matriarchal, and fathom that. When they came out of the caves and they killed the women and left the reserve of them and put them on islands like Lesbo Island. They called it that's what that word lesbian come from. And they raped the woman and took over her land because the inheritance, inheritance came through, was passed down from the woman to her children. Because no matter who the fathers were, the mama's going to take care of the children, and she's going to take care of the men. And egal, because the matriarchies are egalitarian society. I'm not even saying that woman is better. I'm saying they demonized the woman. They unalived her. They got rid of all the relics. They got rid of all the feminine expressions of God. There's a masculine expression and a feminine expression. They rewrote their books. And they said that everybody came from the rib of a man, which isn't even biologically possible. And then they blamed Eve for all the sins of the world. They rewrote the stories in order to make women seem like women are evil. Women have their issues, but humans have their issues. What's more likely, since everybody has a navel, and the navel is attached to the umbilical cord, is that everybody has to pass through a woman. Like, that's common sense. That's science. It's not rocket science. It's basic science. But they rewrote the books. And they told us to hate everything related to a woman, even her menstrual blood. But they can sing about power of the blood as long as it came from the man that they created. When the Council of Nicaea met in 322 AD, they changed a lot of things. They even changed Passover to Easter. So they were like all these Hebrew people. Well, who are the Hebrew people? The Hebrew people are the American, Asiatic, black folk. African Americans, black, colored, Negroes, Negies, indigenous. They were also considered Hebrew. Interesting. So why were they celebrating things like Passover? Because Passover actually, when you look at nature, has to do with the season of life, spring, resurrection. When now all the things that were dead during the wintertime raise up to new life, resurrection. New life, the flowers bloom, the trees bloom, the grass, the blades of the grass become more beautiful. The hours, the sun is up. And it's in the sky longer than it was in the wintertime. The farmers knew what things to plant during that time. All of the agricultural societies honored and venerated the sun, the seasons, the waters. That's why they have water gods. The feminine, because they brought forth life and they knew how to work with the blood, with their ancestral rituals. It's interesting that they called the woman who menstruate unclean, but they'll drink blood or symbolic blood with wine or grape juice. It's interesting that we will call societies that have rituals working with blood demonic, but we'll drink blood at a sacrament. We call it communion. And we'll eat the flesh and body of Jesus, or the cracker or the unleavened bread if you're Hebrew, to represent the lamb or sacrificial lamb Christ. So when the Romans overtook these societies in 322 AD and they changed the biblical text or whatever are the different things are the ways that we did things, they said, we're going to get rid of Passover. We're not going to let them know that Passover, the story, even came from the agricultural ways, their indigenous agricultural ways about the sun rising. Okay, about fertility. They were blessing fertility. They called it fertility goddess because they were venerating the concept of fertility, and they associated a goddess with fertility because that's what they did in ancient societies. Now, they don't have a problem with worshiping a male god. That's the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, and they're all males. But heaven forbid you mention a woman, that they're actually talking about the Father, the Son, and the woman. So they said, we're going to do away with Passover since the Hebrew people keep Passover and they're really honoring and venerating fertility and a fertility goddess. And we're going to tell them to worship our goddess Ishtar or Estre. And we're going to call this Easter. And that's why we have a rabbit, because rabbits are prolific and they have lots of births, right? And we're going to have eggs and rabbits. And we're going to make it around the same time that they honor and venerate the Messiah, Christ. And instead of calling it Passover, we're going to call it resurrection. That's okay. My point is, this is resurrection season. It's the death, burial of one old system of sin. It's the sacrificing of entities. But it's also about resurrection. Who's resurrecting? What's resurrecting during Easter and Passover season? Because Passover and Easter is all about Christ resurrecting. It's even about the Old Testament when the death angel passed over God's chosen people. So right now, people are being arrested. That's passing over us if we've been living righteously. Right now, what's resurrecting is a whole new system behind the scenes. That's why the United States Treasury Department took over that $1.7 trillion student loan portfolio. And right now, they're telling people to pay their student loans while they rectify what they're going to do about the loans that's in default. What they're going to eventually do is do away with debt. They have to. What they're going to eventually do is resurrect the gold standard. Skull and Bones 322 is tomorrow. Death of their system. Death of them. The death angel is dealing with them. But Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah, the risen one, the ancestors, if you don't believe in Yeshua or Jesus, which really there was no J, so you put an I there, ISIS, the divine feminine and divine masculine, but many people say this is the era of the divine feminine, is coming to resurrect the people. Nimna Ninhursag, who seated modern day humanity here, according to Sumerian texts, has come back because she's always been concerned about the men and the woman, humanity, that she has seated on this planet. If you buy that story, you can call it Ninhursag, you can call it Nimna, you can call it ISIS, you can call it Jesus, you can call it Yeshua HaMashiach, you can call it Yeshua, you can call it the Christ, the Christos consciousness rising. This is the second coming of Jesus. When the sound of the trumpet sounds, the dead in Christ will rise first, and then those that are alive and remain will be caught up to meet him in the air, and they will be translated or changed. Their bodies will change in the moment of the twinkling of an eye. You can call it all that. No matter what you say, it's resurrection season. If you don't want to buy any of that, you can look around and see the flowers shooting up out of the soil. Resurrection season. You can see the trees breaking forth and the leaves waving in the air to the ancestors, waving in front of the sun. The S-U-N that represents, and that's the same thing as the S-O-N, the Son of God. The Son, the S-O-N, represents the S-U-N. The trees are reverencing, worshiping the S-U-N. They're waving their hands in worship and bowing in reverence to the S-U-N that gives them life. The flowers are blossoming and worshiping, just reverencing, honoring the Son, the S-U-N. It's resurrection season. So any of you that represent or celebrate Passover, God bless you, heaven smile on you, is my prayer, because you understand and you understand deeply what it means to be buried in debt, buried in sin, buried in woefulness, buried in angst, buried in anxiety, buried in depression, buried in hopelessness, buried in helplessness, buried in trauma, buried in bad news, buried, and using death money with all these spells on it to keep us enslaved. You know what it's like to feel like you're dead. You know, they even called you dead when they called you a citizen, saying you sit in sin, saying you a slave to the system. You know what it means if you were classified as black to be classified as black, which means that you're dead and have no standing in law. We all know what it's like to be dead, to be treated as dead, to go through their court systems and to be called dead, to have to get an attorney to attorney for us or speak on our behalf because they considered us dead and lost that seat. You know what it's like to be dead, but I'm telling you right now as evangelist Dr. Kia Marie Pruitt, to wake up, stand tall, because it's resurrection season. Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah, Jesus, ISIS, ISIS, whoever you call it, the S-U-N, the Son of God, the Most High Source, your ancestors have come back and returned to resurrect you to new life, a new opportunity, newness in health, newness in wealth, newness in prosperity. Hallelujah. Somebody give me an amen. Somebody stand up where you are and start running around where you are and just praise the ancestors. Praise the God of your understanding. Praise the Messiah, because this is resurrection season. No more death, but life. I will that you be in good health and prosper, even as your soul prospers. That's scripture. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. The cattle, the land, everything belongs to me. Thus saith the Lord. Thus saith the God of your understanding. Thus saith your ancestors. Thus saith Sword. Thus saith Dr. Kia Pruitt. You rose and resurrected with all power in your hands. Rise, family, rise. You have dominion. It's resurrection season. I don't care what people say. If you go to church and that is your value system, go to church with a shout in your voice. Go to church with a praise in your soul. Go to church with thanksgiving flowing from your tongues, shouting, hallelujah, glory. The day of redemption has come. And the more of us that say that will reverberate through the atmosphere, and it will manifest quickly. Because the moment we make up our mind, God and the universe conspires to assist you. I and my Father are one. The scripture says, no man, when Christ was speaking to his disciples, he said, no man come unto me except the Father attracts him, except the Father calls him. The metaphysical part of that is no manifestation, manifestation comes unto me except the Father draws him. Who's the Father? I and the Father are one, except my higher consciousness attracts him. With my highest consciousness, knowing that I have power, I declare victory. I declare resurrection. I declare healing. I declare prosperity. I declare health. I declare wealth. I declare you being freed from the shackles that enslaved you. I declare no more debt, no more sin. Debt is sin. I declare a release of our funds. I declare a release from the captivity of financial bondage in the name of my own self, Dr. Kia Pruitt, in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, in the name of my ancestors, in the name of God, the Father, the Mother, the Son, everybody, in the name of the Soul Tribe, we declare it to be so. If you keep Passover, dance like David danced until you pass out. Because when you're dancing, you are changing the atmosphere. If you keep Easter, dance, clap your hands, beat on that tambourine, rejoice, wave your hands in admiration to the Most High, to Source, to your ancestors. If you keep none of those, but you might venerate fertility, Ishtar, Isis, I don't know, you might respect nature. Some people say nature is my church. Go into nature. Walk and run by the water and dance and move to the rhythm of the music and the rhythm of the wind. Worship in the best way you know how. And thank the Most High and the ancestors that your time is here. This is resurrection season, family. Death of their season, death of their systems, death of their financial season and systems, death of their banking system, death of their whole ritualistic system of sacrificing children, still worshiping Baal and Molech and sacrificing children, death of all that. We have the spirit of Moses today, and we are saying, let my people go. Let my people go. Who is my people? Everybody under the sound of my voice, every human being on this planet. Let my people go. When we learn to use the power that the ancestors, our forefathers gave us and that the Most High gave us and start speaking, that's when we can break up the fallow ground. We can break up the atmosphere. We can break up all these systems. It's over. Walk in the newness of life. No. I'm rising in power today because their system is dead. You know, in the old times, you had to apply blood to the doorpost and the death angel would pass over. Right now, apply love to your heart. Apply love to your soul. Apply love to your life. And that death angel will pass over you. Hate that, all the envy, hatred, malice, all that stuff that they seed into our consciousness, depression, it's going to pass by because we love. We love each other. We love life. We love source. We love the Most High, God, whomever you call him or her. We love each other. You know how I know if people really have a love for the God they claim to love? By how they treat each other. Because you can't say you love God or Jesus or Mother God or even nature if you don't love the person that's right in front of you. If you don't love yourself enough to walk up out of the shackles that the adversary has put on you. They got us so shackled and in chains, they don't even have to put shackles on us anymore. But we're free. Lift up your leg and be free. Go out in nature and dance. Go out somewhere today and dance and just move and sing and be free. Shout with the trumpet of Zion, the trumpet with your voice, saying, I'm free! Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. When we say that, and we say it knowing that it's true, not believing, but knowing that it's true, it happens. Whatever you think about, whatever you say and focus on is what manifests and magnifies in your life. Shabbat Shalom, family. It is the 7th-day Sabbath. So we declare it, family, that all the curses, they're broken. I love you all with all my heart and soul. I just came to tell you that it's over. Sheikh Jacob Bey, who knows how to break down all the numbers and he understands codes, said tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow, that's 322 represents skull and bones. It's over. It's a transition of power. He went all through his documents to prove that the rituals that they have been doing show that there's a transition of power from the deep state, the dark entities that enslaved the planet back. Everything's being returned back to we the people. I love you too. So Even though you may be looking at silver and gold and seeing the prices going down, it might look like things aren't happening for us. Know that the prices are being suppressed. Some people are selling off their assets, but also the people in power are suppressing the prices. One of the reasons they suppress the prices, thank you, Spirit, is to pressure the people that had a lot, that were controlling a lot, to sell off their assets. So they're either selling off their assets or their assets are being frozen. But hold your position. If you have silver and gold, if you can afford it, hold on to it. If that's not in your budget, but you desire to have some type of metals, get copper. Get copper. $5 an ounce. Get copper. That's if you desire. If you don't want to, or it's not in your budget, you might want some gold. Get some gold RM notes. 24 carats pressed onto a note. It's real legal tender that you can use today to buy local goods and service. You don't believe me? Go to goldback.com. They'll tell you. Ask yourself, why is appmex.com, SD Bullion, JM Bullion, Metals, Money Metals Mint, Golden State Mint, Great American Coin Company, why are they all selling gold RM notes? Because it's 24 karat gold. Because it's used, right? You can use it legally. 46 states in America have passed legislation to remove taxes from the sales of precious metals. Why? Because the deep state that enslaved us and forced us all off the gold standard and to use their United States dollar put taxes on gold and silver. And they said it's not money. It's just a relic. It's a commodity, like a trading card, like an old artifact. The deep state put a tax on it, even though the Constitution said you can't tax money. Now, this is proof that Nasara is real. States are passing legislation, 46 to date. There's only 4 more states left. 46 states have said, nope, we took that away. No more taxing silver and gold. Because they're aligning with the Constitution that says the only thing that can be used as money is silver and gold. The dollar is defined as a fixed weight in silver and a fixed weight in gold, according to Article 1, Section 10. And the only thing that you can use to pay off debts is silver and gold. States are reclaiming their power. All states in America, according to the Republic, are their own entity, their own countries. If you want to bring about change quickly, work in the spiritual realm, pray, fast. I don't want P-R-A-Y to be confused with P-R-E-Y. However you speak to the Most High, declare it, sing, speak in your ancient tongue. People call it speaking in tongues, dance, whatever your spiritual rituals or ways. Rituals just a rite. We have rites of passage, but when people do rituals, we call them demonic. But you do your rituals when you take sacrament in church. Whatever rite you do to get the attention of the ancestors, that's why they did away with ancestral reverence and speaking to the ancestors and holding ceremonies to the ancestors, because they didn't want you to utilize the power that your culture taught you to invoke your ancestors, to invite them to come into your life to help you. They can call on Jesus if they're Christian. They can call on demons if they're satanic. They can call on all these other entities. They can pass children through the fire if they worship Molech, but you're not allowed to call on your ancestors, the people who preceded you in transitioning, crossing over, who are still very much alive in spirit. Invoke them if that's your value. Call on them. But if you say the spiritual way is not my way, then you know what? Go to your local system and change the laws. Because the Constitution says that local communities and local governments have more power than the federal government. Local communities have power. Go down and work at the state level, the community level, the local level. Change those laws. Put pressure on people that's in power. You know what's interesting to me It's how we believe in marching and screaming and hollering and protesting when the deep state tells us to do that. When they told us that somebody was unalived, even though it could be AI, we never met these people. We don't know who they are. The deep state tell us to march because a black man was killed. You don't know that black man from Who Shot John. You don't. He looks just like the entertainers. You know, O.J. Simpson, we finding out that the trial was fake. We should have known that when the lady that is a news anchor person that looks like Nicole Brown Simpson. Forgot her name. Looks just like her. When she came in to start doing news, we was like, oh my God, that look like Nicole Brown Simpson. Maybe the O.J. Simpson trial was fake. And then I showed you a video where they said all of those courtrooms were actually Hollywood studios. Thank you, Megyn Kelly. Looks just like Nicole Brown Simpson. So maybe the O.J. Simpson trial was a fake. And George Floyd looks just like that guy who says, oh, I'm just his brother. Put it right in our faces. They call us brothers. I'm a football star and I just happen to look like him. But when the deep state tells us to rally and protest and tear up things, when the deep state tells us to march in the streets and fight against the National Guard and the police because we're mad about a shutdown, we rush to the streets. When the deep state told us to march around the banks, and I understand that, and tell the banks, we demand you stop with these balloon mortgages during the housing crisis in 2008, we'll do that. But now that we know that the Epstein files has been released, and we know that judges, lawyers, entertainers, presidents, teachers, doctors, coaches, pastors was molesting and raping children, eating their flesh, drinking their blood, harvesting their organs, everybody's quiet. Where's Black Lives Matter? Where's Antifa? Where's all the concerned people? Nobody cares about the children. Everybody's quiet. I'm waiting on Trump to take down the deep state and arrest the people who did these things to babies. You don't care because you was marching in the streets when Hollywood told you to march, when the pastors told you to march. But now that the babies are involved, you're silent. We're silent. We don't care. We don't care. Because you know what? If we cared, we withdraw our energy from their entertainment systems. We'll withdraw our children from their schools. We'll withdraw ourselves from their jobs by creating our own. I know we got to create our own first. Get busy. What are we doing? Do we really care? No wonder they've been allowed to rape children for hundreds of years. We just handed over our children to the school system, just handed our children. And I understand because we had to work. But now that it's out, who's crying out? Save the children. Who's marching through? What churches are organizing the people right now? All these pastors that were about Black Lives Matters, all these black fraternities, Greek fraternities and sororities who is so concerned, all these attorneys who is telling everybody, yes, sue the government, tell them to burn it down, I'll represent you, go ahead and get arrested, I'll represent you. All these judges who thought it was a good idea, all these people who is telling us to take to the streets are quiet now. Where's the churches? Where are the pastors? Where's the judges and the attorney? Oh, they were complicit. Some of them joined in order to get the 501c3s, in order to keep them. I see. In order to move up in the Boule, in the secret societies, in the Skull and Bones, in the Eastern Stars, they had to be complicit in the raping of children. Or they had to turn their heads when they knew their fellow fraternity brothers were doing it, or sorority sisters were doing it, because they wanted to hold on to their status and their money and their position in life. We got to do better. Our children are our future. I know we're tired. We need a break. We raised them all day. We're tired from working all day. We got to deal with traffic, fight through traffic, then go and build up somebody else's business. But you know what? If we don't have a mission for our lives, we don't know why we're here. We don't have a vision. Can't see what our goal in life is. We don't have a vision for yourself or your family. You're going to build up somebody else's wealth, and you're going to perform their mission and vision for them. If you don't have a mission statement or a vision statement for yourself, somebody's going to create one for you, and they're going to have you fulfilling their mission and their vision. Hence the reason these billionaires and millionaires continue to do whatever they wanted to do in their corporations, in their banking systems, in their courtrooms, because they had a vision. But their day is over. I'm done with them. I'm going to do my own little ritual. I'm going to write down certain things and I'm going to burn it up and say, this represents the deep state, and I'm going to burn it up. You know, I grew up in an era where the church demonized all other cultures a lot. But then they would tell you, write your blessing down on a paper, the things you want God to do. And then we're going to do something outside. We're going to all put down the blessing and we're going to put it in this fire and let the smoke go up to God. Because this ritual is going to bring and manifest your harvest. But they would demonize the people that would do rituals, dealing with blood, dealing with fire, dealing with calling on their ancestors, dealing with dancing and passing out, dancing so hard you dancing yourself into a frenzy. They call that a seance when other people doing it. Like we gotta like reconstruct our minds. Whatever you need to do to get free, as long as it doesn't harm people. Speak to the ancestors, get it done. Let's withdraw from the system as much as we can. Like a lot of us are on social media right now. This is how we communicate. But some of us are on it so much that they now are siphoning all of our energy. And it's crazy. Even if you might use AI to work with business, but then they take all your information, take all your energy. It's like, we're tired of this. At some point, we're going to revolt against the system. But my point here today is that they're dead. They're done. It's over. It's a wrap. So President Trump announced that Iran is a wrap. Whatever he sought to accomplish, it's over. That just came out today. It's a wrap. We've 100% accomplished our goal. We're about to just call it the day in Iran. He's also in Cuba right now pressuring the administration to step down because the administration, according to Mark Rubio, who is Secretary of State, and he's the son of Cuban parents, said that it's not that Cuba doesn't have wealth. It's that the people in power have held on to the wealth for themselves. They've established a communist system and held on to the wealth for themselves. So President Trump is saying, we're going to tell everybody else we're going to keep that freeze on y'all. They can't do business with you. Nope, you're not getting no oil from Venezuela. We're going to cut it all off to force your leader to step down. You know what's interesting to me is that a lot of people that's here from these other countries will say Trump has no business in their country, but yet they're in our country where Trump is the president. Make it make sense. And some of them are here when the deep state tells them to protest against our president and our administration, our republic. They'll wave their flag and protest here, but won't put pressure on their own leaders in their countries. So yeah, Trump is over there putting pressure on Cuba, just like he put pressure on Venezuela. The people are here telling us what we need to do, how bad our government is, waving their flags, protesting in the street, and how bad this president is, whether you like him or not. But then won't apply pressure to their own presidents in their own country, won't use the same rhetoric against their own people. But I give them 3.5 seconds, they'll be rejoicing in Cuba like they were doing in Venezuela when Trump's get done. What gives him the authority to do this? Well, when you came over here, basically, you yielded to him. And he is the one that was chosen by the beings in power to be the commander-in-chief of the military to take down the deep state. Like it or not, he is doing the job for which he was chosen. If you don't think that God can use anybody, you need to read about, what is it, Cyrus, King Cyrus? You need to read about Nebuchadnezzar. You need to read about all these kings in the Bible that God, the God of the Bible, used for the benefit of the people, his people. The Most High God, the ancestors, the creator source can use whomever he or she wills. And then after the work is done, President Trump will step down. He is the trumpet in Zion. A trumpet is a shofar. A shofar is blown. I'm Hebrew, I know. We blow it at the beginning of a feast, at the beginning of a high holy day, at the beginning of the new moon, at the beginning of the Sabbath day. We blow it during when the king enters the room to announce the presence of the king or the queen. We blow it to announce wars. We blow it for announcements, to make aware for war, and the beginning of celebrations. He is that alert, that announcement, that trumpet in Zion that's being blown against the deep state. When he finishes his job, he will then step down. He is the last president. And we will return to the republic, which is already being returned and restored. And then we will return to common law or tribal law. It's all being done, family. Know it. Walk like it, act like it, think like it, move like it. Declare it to be so. And it will happen in real time in front of you. You know why Nasara is happening for me on my timeline? Because I've been talking about Nasara since 2017. Therefore, I've been talking about the National Economic Security and Reformation Act and the global version of that, the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. And I've been saying these are acts that was turned into a law that will dismantle the deep state, the fake faux government, restore the republic, and return us back to constitutional law and release trillions of dollars of funds into the global economy. Because I stood on my principle, 10 toes down, and stood on my square, would not relent, and kept speaking it and commanding it to be so, and looking for the evidence and working to bring that into the reality of everybody under the sound of my voice. It is manifesting. And other people have aligned with the people like us to declare it to be so. And that's why we're realizing it. That's why we saw President Trump remove us from 66 international organizations and saying, I'm doing this to restore the sovereignty of American people. Because we stood on principle. We stood on what we knew to be true. I don't care that people said, oh, she's been talking about Nasara and Jasara for a long time. She looks like a fool. No, I don't. I look like the prophetess that I am, the woman of God and goddess that I am, and the God that I am, the creator. That's what that God means, that I am. I spoke it and I see it. Trump created the Board of Peace to replace the United Nations and said all these international organizations did not serve us. But I'm returning power back to the people. He brokered trillions of dollars in deals in the Middle East last summer. Then he brokered a big deal with China. He brokered deals with Iran before the Iranian war. You think this isn't just something that come on, it's orchestrated. I showed my private group what the Iranian government said. Iran is open to American markets, but people rather believe the deep state because that is the vibration upon which they're vibrating, the frequency upon which they're vibrating. That's what they see. That's what they focus on. War, destruction, enslavement. So that's real to them. What's real to me is that Iran is open to American markets, and as such, we've already invested in Iran. By the time everybody wakes up, we're good. You know, the people who said Trump was only in Venezuela to steal their oil, they believed that. They spatted that out. They got on their high horse, said he's a bad man, blah, blah. We said, in our reality, Venezuela is free. In our reality, Venezuela is being brought back into North America, back to Turtle Island. In our reality, it was working in our favor. Do you know what? We showed our private group where the Venezuelan government said President Trump bought oil from us, and with the resources with which he bought the oil, we're using it to back the Venezuelan bolivar to revalue our currency. You know why we were able to find that article? Because we know that we're manifestors, and whatever we speak and think is real. We're operating in 5D. So we saw the article from the Venezuelan government that said that President Trump paid for the oil, and we're using it to back up our Venezuelan bolivar, and we're revaluing it. We operate on 5D. So we saw when President Trump says, I'm going to remove sanctions from Iran in the summertime. We saw the articles that said Iran is unveiling their new currencies. But you know who didn't see it? The people operating on 3D, who said that we're liars and we make up stuff. And that I'm an agent of the deep state, and y'all need to be careful of me because I'm an agent. And I'm calling different people on them. I'm trying to get them in. I don't even know these people. But you know what? Everybody's an agent. Either you're an agent of chaos or you're an agent of peace. Which one are you? Are you an agent of detriment and hell and death? Or you're an agent of life and peace, power, and prosperity? Over here, we're agents of the latter. We only focus on the good. We see the good. We see some bad that people are doing, but we choose to have blinders on our eye and know that sometimes things are going to happen that are bad in the short term because we're at war and there are casualties of war. But overall, we've declared victory years ago. We declared that we were on the gold standard years ago, and that's why when gold was only $10 an ounce and $11 an ounce, $14 an ounce, people in the Soul Tribe was buying it up. Well, everybody else was making fun of the people in the Soul Tribe. You know why Nassar and Jassar is real and it's working out right now in our favor? We can see the dismantling of the IRS. We can see the FBI agents are being arrested. We see judges being arrested and report on it. We see the United States Department of Education being dismantled in an MSN article that came out today about what happened on Thursday, saying that Trump is dismantling the Department of Education and turning over those duties to the United States Treasury Department. You know why we see that? Because we're vibrating on a high frequency and we're living in 5D. And whatever you think about and speak is a reality for you. We're free. We're sovereign. That's why we were able to see the article when it came out 3 years ago that said banks were ready for foreign currency exchange. Banks met globally to discuss their preparedness for the foreign currency exchange. That's why I got on Facebook, on all my platforms. That wasn't 3 years ago. I think it was 2023, 2 years. Yeah, that was 3 years ago. Banks are ready. And they said banks had accumulated gold in record numbers and they were Basel III compliant, meaning they recognized gold as money. They had to have gold in their coffers, and they had to have foreign reserve notes that they call tier 2 assets. We had to look at tier 2 assets. What does that mean? Tier 2 assets, banking terminology, means foreign reserve notes. Break it down a little more, foreign currencies. Why did banks meet globally 3 years to make sure they were ready for the foreign currency exchange? Because they knew there would come a time when all countries' currencies would revalue, would be reassessed a value based on the resources that each country has. That's why it's a reality for us, because we saw it before it happened. We declared it. We looked for the evidence and we produced it, and it became real. And all the people that didn't believe it, they should be grateful that we declared this season to happen. We declared it with our words and with our actions. We declared it with everything in us that change is going to come, that the gold standard will return. We declared that we would be sovereign and free. We declared that all nations would be free from the beast from Babylon. And it's happening. Rome, the United States Incorporated, which is the pseudo-Roman Empire, has collapsed. That's why the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron doctrine that had given the United States government unlimited powers. That's why they said they were treasonous and unconstitutional. Because it's that time. We declared it. We announced it. We prepared our families. We said it is so. It is done. So family, I know I'm just preaching to the choir. We all know this. Banks are now holding cryptocurrencies. Thank you for saying that, Galactic. Absolutely. Somebody said Trump is just trying to avoid prison. Well, he's doing a good job of whatever he has to do in the meantime. If you believe he's going to prison, that's your reality. But what's he doing in the meantime? How many countries has he set free in the meantime? How many deals has he brokered that will help not only the American people, but people all across the globe in the meantime? The war that's in Iran, the war has emptied out Dubai, which was a cesspool for rape of children, human trafficking, drugs, violence, and money laundering. What is he doing in the interim? People were focused so much on what they believe to be an indictment against President Donald Trump without giving him or his administration or the military any props for the victory that we're realizing today. If that's your reality, then that's what you'll see. And let's say he did go to prison. Let's say the deep state or whoever's in power says he has to go to prison, or God. You never know. The military or people in power could have said, you know what? You going to prison, you doing whatever, but before you do that, you got to dismantle the system. But I'll do you one better. The real Trump that y'all looking for ain't here no more. How many people have to say that? Ben Carson said there are two Trumps. We don't know which one we're seeing or if we're seeing the real one. It's the office. It's the seat. It's what it represents. We're really under military control, and beyond that, the beings, the benevolent ones that are here to liberate humanity have come to help humanity in this war against those entities that has enslaved them. Ben Carson said there are two. He was over the United States Housing and Urban Development. Dick Gregory said there were two. David Keith Quigley, also known as John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. The David Keith Quigley I've had on my show many times and wrote many books, put me in this book as well, wrote about me. Thank you, brother. Said that Donald Trump was his cousin and the real one was unalived in 1989. You have political analysts that have said that. Benjamin Forfeit said that in the 1980s and 90s, and he still said it. But to pacify the people who won't accept that the real one died in 1989, to pacify them, he'll say, okay, well, we have various Trumps. They wear masks, just like everybody believes Biden will wear a mask, but they won't believe that Trump could be a masked person. Whatever people say against him, if you don't want to give him any accolades, thank the military. He's the commander-in-chief. He's the one that is the head, the figurehead. Thank the military. Thank the ancestors. Thank the entities, the extraterrestrials that have come from beyond the ice walls, because there are many civilizations beyond the ice walls outside this dome that have returned. Some returned from the ancestral republic. Humans that escaped other resets have returned, and they come back often to help liberate humanity. They use their advanced technology. They come through portals, and they travel often. Admiral Byrd, who was right from here in America in the military, he talked about traveling beyond the ice walls, going to Antarctica, seeing other civilizations. We'll believe that. But if somebody says the ancestors return, oh my God, that's a little out there. Or extraterrestrials just mean they're outside the earth plane, the terrestrial plane. So no matter who you want to give credit to, give thanks. Be grateful that things are returning back into the hands of the people. It's our time, family. So let's walk like it. Let's behave like it. Let's act like it. Let's get our humanitarian projects in place. But where does humanitarianism start? Charity begins at home. Let's make sure our hearts are right. Because we're going to have to exhibit love and grace and forbearance and understanding and compassion for each other and for the children that have been rescued. Who's going to take care of them? For the women and the men who've been trafficked, who's going to take care of them? We have to make sure our heart is in a position to receive the wealth. We have to make sure our heart is in a position to take care of the vulnerable, the weak, the sick, the infirmed. No more government. It's us. We are the government. We want a better society. Whole societies, healthy societies are built upon and comprised of healthy whole communities. Healthy whole communities are built upon and comprised of healthy whole families. Those are communities, just a bunch of families together. A healthy whole family can only be healthy and whole if you're whole, if you're healthy. This is the invitation, the altar call. If your heart has not been in the best position, get your heart right with the Creator and the ancestors and your family members. Ask the Most High to forgive you for having anger and hatred and impatience, intolerance. Work on your heart. Work on yourself. Go to the people that you've offended and ask for forgiveness. Go to the people who have offended you and extend the olive branch and give them an opportunity. The Bible says if you know somebody offended you, you are to confront them. Go to them. Tell them what the offense was. Extend the olive branch. Give them an opportunity to make it right and restore your relationship. Make sure your heart is light as a feather. You don't believe in heaven, going to heaven, or transitioning to a better place? Then what about the principles of Mayat that says you're going to be judged if you ever transition and close your eyes? On the scales of Mayat, in order to ascend to higher states, higher dimensions, your heart has to be light as a feather. This is the invitation call to get our hearts right with God, with our husbands, our wives, our children, our grandparents, our elders, our community members. Because if our heart's not right, we will waste and run through the wealth. We will not do the right things with the wealth, and some of us won't even get access to it. Because the quantum financial system is not just a blockchain system, it also reads your energy. And if that system that was gifted to us by the benevolent Anunnaki or benevolent extraterrestrials or source, if it reads that your energy is off, you will not have access to your wealth. Get your heart right. We're moving to an era of love. If your mind is discombobulated with confusion and anxiety and depression, work out whatever is causing those issues and get it right. Restore your relationships. If you're eating, your diet is off. Get healthy, because what does it matter if Nassar and Jassar is going to release trillions of dollars into the global economy? What does it matter if the Rodriguez Fund, the St. Germain Trust, the Ancient Dragon Societies release funds? The trillions of dollars are being released. What does it matter if the Sovereign Wealth Fund that Trump created as soon as he came back in 2025 is released to help the infrastructure, to invest in the people, and to create freedom cities? What does it matter if all that's released, but you are sick, too sick to enjoy it? Or you check out of here. What does all that matter? Eat right. Be healthy. Expend your time getting your heart, your mind, your spirit right. With spirit, breath, the breath of life. Some of us are out of breath. We breathe shallowly. Why? Because we got angst in our heart. We have trauma trapped in our hips, trapped in our muscles, trapped in our bodies. We're anxious. Stretch. If you're not against yoga, do yoga. Yoga is about the unity of mind, body, and breath. But some people are against it. It's not a part of your values because of maybe the mantras that some people say. I don't know. But breath is spirit. Get your breath. We always say, I want to be whole, mind, body, soul, and spirit. Soul, that deepest part of you. Spirit is breath. Get your breath. Learn how to breathe right. This is the invitation for us to acknowledge that we have areas of our life that we need to improve upon. And when we improve upon that, then we're letting the ancestors and source and the Most High know I'm ready to receive my wealth. Some of us have held up the wealth ourselves because we weren't ready for it. Learn wealth management. Learn budgeting. Get your financial house in order. Create a mission statement. Why am I here? What is my purpose? Create a vision statement. This is the invitation for you and me to get our lives right, because the family won't get right until I get right. My son asked me the other day, he challenged me, why haven't we had a family meeting? You keep talking about a family meeting. I said, because I have to get right and make sure I'm completely right. I know my mission statement. I know my vision. I'm working it every day. I'm fine tuning that so that when I do call this family back together, there will be established order, because I'm the head of the family. Now that my husband has passed, I am the matriarch. You are the matriarch. You are the patriarch. Why do you expect your children to live right and do right if you're not doing right, if your heart's not right? Because they're not just listening to what we say. They're listening to what we do. They're watching what we do. So let's get our hearts right. Let's get our finances in order as much as we can. Let's develop a mission statement for ourselves and our family. Get a vision statement. What do we see for ourselves in the future and our family in the future? And create a family plan and a family constitution. Have a family meeting and get them together and learn what their values are around wealth and money and health. Get that in order. Then do the humanitarian project. Why we keep asking about humanitarian projects to go heal the world and you're sick? Your family's sick. Your marriage is sick. Your relationship is sick. Your children are sick. Your elders are sick. The family's broken. Humanitarian project? How about starting at home? How about starting with Kia, with self? Look in the mirror. I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. Let's get our hearts right. Let's get our families together and work from inside first and then outwardly. I love you. My purpose is to inspire you and encourage you, family, to live your most fully actualized self, to maximize your potential fully. And I trust that I said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing life that you desire and deserve. Because you decided to come here to help deliver humanity, including yourself and your family. I love you, family. Take care. Happy Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom. God blessings be upon you. Go and make this a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. I love you. Peace, family. Go make this a great day, and take care. To all my Muslim community, assalamu alaikum. Shalom, peace, good evening, good afternoon, good morning. And if I don't see you again, good night. I love you.